Hi everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Sandy. I am doing what I call BookTube Newbie Tag Part 2 today. So if you watch my intro video, my question to you as far as what interesting and unique things you could bring to BookTube, I did say I had a concept. So today I'm just going to talk about that concept. So one of the important things to note before I share this concept with you is that I am a list maker, list lover. I tend to have a list of books that I would like to read that is fairly massive. One of my friends gave me a sticker, which I was born with a reading list that I will never finish, which is completely and totally true. But I stumbled across a list of books a number of years ago, and I have been reading from that list off and on ever since. And so one of the things I wanted to do on this channel is to do what I'm calling the 1001 book countdown. So 1001 is a very large number, and I will explain where that comes from. So largely it comes from this monstrosity of a book. So this is the 1001 books you must read before you die list. I ended up buying this book to support this concept for the channel. I actually didn't own it before this. So this is just a massive list of a wide variety of books. One of the things that's important to note about this is I don't feel like every book on this list is worthy necessarily of being on the top 1001 books that you have to read. I think that there are good things and bad things about this book and about the books on this list. So don't only read from this list. And so I tend to read a wide variety of new releases, of older books that maybe aren't on this list. Like I said, there are a number of books that I feel like should be on this list that aren't, and a number of books that are on this list that I don't understand why they are. So it's really more of just a guide, but it is kind of a fun concept. And what it has done for me is opened me up to reading books I would have never selected and authors I had never heard of. And so that's kind of what I'm hoping to bring to this channel. And what my plan is to start with 1001 countdown number and then work my way down. One of the things with this book is that there have been multiple versions of this book. And so depending on which version you have or which version you've seen, it may have different books than what I will read. One of the things is if you go out and you look on, say, list challenges, there's a list challenge that has 1,316 books on it for all versions of this book. Side note, if you like list challenges or like lists, list challenges is a really interesting black hole of lists. And so I was going out there, I think I was spending more time updating book lists than I was actually reading, so I had to scale it back a little bit. But it is a fun little side thing if you want to go play with some lists and some list challenges. It is kind of a fun little thing. Anyway, so there is also a Goodreads shelf that has 1,315 books on it. I've linked both of those in my description below if you want to try doing the list challenge to see how many books you've read. I'm curious. And then if you go to my Goodreads shelf, I have two different lists. One is the 1001 books to read. One is the 1001 books that I have already read. The combination of those two get me to 1,307. So when you look at what I have left to read, I have 1,041. And the reason why I'm not starting with 1,041 and I'm starting at 1001 from a countdown perspective is I already know that there are books that I'm not going to be able to find. They're books that are out of print. They're books that might be $700-800 because they have such a limited availability now. So in those cases, what I will do is create my fun little lost and found list. And so my lost and found, I do have a shelf already created in Goodreads for it. I will have update that if there is a book that I come across that I just can't find. And if you have any suggestions on where I can find some of those books, please do let me know because I already know I can't find some. So I will be starting with 1001 as my starting number. So the other thing with this is I will not be buying 1001 books. It's just not economically feasible, nor do I have room to store them all. So I will be largely getting these from the library. I will purchase some. Not every book on this list is available at the library. I already know that as well. And so my next piece will go out to search the internet to see where I can find them, what formats they might be available in. I would like to try and support more independent bookstores if I have to purchase a book, or secondhand books will be my preference if I have to end up buying something. The last note is about audiobooks. So for this, I have kind of a love-hate relationship with audiobooks. I didn't listen to them for the longest time because I had trouble getting into the story. And then recently I have upped that a little bit, and sometimes it is stuff on this list. And so with that, so sorry. So with that, when we look at audiobooks and whether or not I count them as part of the books that I read, there are cases where I will count them. A perfect example of that is The Trick is to Keep Breathing by Janice Galloway. That book was not available at my library, and it was a free audiobook. And when I listened to it, I was able to follow the story and really absorb the story. And so in that case, it would be one that I would count in the 1001 book countdown. There is an example of a book that I listened to very recently that is not the same, which is Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man by James Joyce. It was narrated by or read by Colin Farrell, and his Irish accent, or his accent, was magnificent. It just him reading James Joyce. Unfortunately, I think I was more romanced by the version of him reading it rather than actually listening to the story, and I ended up ending the book not really knowing what the story was about. And maybe that's a James Joyce thing because I haven't read any other James Joyce yet. I know there's a character named Daedalus in it. That's about it. So what I will do in those circumstances is I will put it in the Audible reread shelf. And so the Audible reread shelf is created already on my Goodreads, and it will include those ones that I'm not going to reduce down my number as far as 1001 goes. They will be the first pick if I somehow manage to get to the end and still don't have enough books off of that to make up the 1001 number. They will be the first ones that I pick up to do so. So that is the first part. I will also recognize that if I read a book a week, this will take me 20 years. I almost said 52 years. It will take me 20 years. If I read 2 books a week, it will take me 10 years. So this is just a way to try and maybe help motivate me to continue reading off of this list. It is a bucket list item. Again, another list for me to finish every book on this list. I'm sure by the time I get to the end, there'll be another version with more books on it. But it may take me a long time to actually finish this, or whether or not I get all the way to the end. So the other thing is, at the beginning of the year, I selected 52 books to put on my list to read for this year, assuming I would try and do one per week. Out of that list, I have read 17, which is good news that I'm right on track. I have 35 left to read that I wanted to read this year. This is kind of an experiment as far as whether or not I like this concept as far as selecting that many books in advance. I may change that later. We'll see how this month goes. So what I will have is since I have 35 books left, I am going to put a 35 up here as well. So the 35 will refer to my goal for this year, which is definitely more attainable and not quite as intimidating as the 1001 is. So out of the 35 I have left, I printed them out on lovely little pink paper and put them in this just solid great green bowl, and am going to draw one for every Sunday in the month of May and put that on my TBR list. So my practice run of this video did not really go very well in that the books I selected were going to be challenging. So hopefully this version is significantly better. We'll see. Okay, so for book number 1 off of this, I'm not looking down, I promise. I have in here The Book of Disquiet by Ferdinand Pessoa, I think is how you say his name. I actually own this book. Hold, please. I have this version of the book, so I am excited. It's one of the very few, actually, that I have in a book edition, and so very excited about this one. Why I put this one on the list? Oh, sorry, back up. rewind. The reason what I'm going to do when I pull these books from the pile is talk about really why I selected them for my list, not necessarily so much necessarily about what the book is about, because in some cases I don't actually know what the book is about. This is actually one of those cases. It just happens to be one of those books that I kept seeing the cover of in in bookstores and had wanted to read, was curious about it. I know nothing about the book, know nothing about the author. The book cover that's a bit more familiar, I'm going to put right here right now for you. You might have seen this in a bookstore because it is a fairly recognizable cover. So that will be book number 1. Yay! Okay, so for book number 2, we're off to a good start so far. Yay! Book number 2 will be Rabbit is Rich by John Updike. This is the 3rd book in the Rabbit Engstrom series. I have read the first 2. I added this one because I really wanted to get the 3rd book and read the 3rd book. So I think this will be a good one. I don't have this book, so I will look at the library and see what they have available for reading this book. But good second pick. Okay, so there are also 5 Sundays in May, so I'm drawing 5 pieces of paper this morning. So the 3rd book on the list is A Passage to India by E.M. Forster. The only reason why I sighed like that is because I have owned this book for quite a while in a digital format and not read it. And I'm not sure why, other than it just hasn't really struck my fancy yet. And so I think it'll be good for me to try and read that. I do have it in digital format already. So I will be reading that just from my digital copy. I won't have an actual physical book. If you want to see the book cover, this is what the book cover is. So for book number 4 in here, come on, I'm going to dig a little bit. For book number 4, we have Austerlitz by W.G. Siebold. So the reason why I selected this one is it was published in I believe in the 2000s, not in the 1990s. And if you look at all the tabs that are on this, the green is, the red on here is the 2000s, the yellows there are the 1900s, and the greens are prior to that. And I was putting a bunch of books on the list that would clear out my 2000s, my 2000 list, published in 2000s list. So that's the only reason why I added it. Also, I thought it was supposed to be short, and now I'm realizing I don't think it's that short. So, but interesting, excited to read it. And so the last one on my drawing today is going to be Threepenny Novel or Opera by Bertolt Brecht. Sorry, I apologize. So this one I know nothing about as well. Just the name of it was kind of interesting. And so this is one I know I can't get at the library either. So I will look and see if I can find a copy of it that is at maybe a secondhand bookstore, or if I want to buy it as a digital version. Don't know yet. We'll see what way that goes. So the 5 books that we have for this are The Book of Disquiet by Ferdinand Pessoa, A Passage to India by E.M. Forster. I have The Threepenny Novel or Opera by Bertolt Brecht, and I have Rabbit is Rich by John Updike, and then my last one was Austerlitz by W.G. Siebold. So that is my TBR for May for my 1001 book countdown. My next video will hopefully be an update on where I'm at with this and provide some reviews of some of these books. If you're interested in reading along or following my progress, you can check me out on Goodreads. I do keep that updated when I start a book, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks, everyone. Bye.